All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the KO show. So the show has a name now. I've just settled on it. Not going to overcomplicate things. I'm Kevin Orosz, also known as Kev KO, and this is my show, the KO show. And that will be its name. So this episode, I want to talk about a lot of different things. So just bear with me here. Again, this whole experiment, this podcast is about my interests and eventually the guests I want to interview. I'm going to approach it in a very different way from the revolution, the one I did before, which many of you will have listened to, hopefully. Now, this is what, episode 6 or something? I'm doing so many solo casts and solo episodes because frankly, and this is just me, in my opinion and personal preference, I'm kind of tired of interviewing people. I've interviewed hundreds of people, not just on my podcast. I worked with an amazing Web3 company back in the day and was the host of their podcast. I've interviewed people basically on other people's podcasts as part of panels and other things. And then personally have interviewed 130, which are up online in the Revolution podcast. And then probably another 100 just on Facebook Lives that never got put on a podcast. I'm kind of tired of it. I want to be interviewed. So if you want to bring me on your podcast, I'd love to be there. And I just want to riff and talk. So that's part of why I'm doing this podcast this way at the beginning. There will be guests on this podcast. And if you want to be on this podcast, send me an email, drop me a line, send me a message. No guarantee you'll make it because, similar to Rogan, some of the big podcasts, this podcast is going to be much more particular and my cup of tea, my cup of joe. I only want to interview people I'm truly excited to interview. In the past, I would just interview anyone and everyone that was willing, that I was even remotely interested in. Some of those became pretty cringe. And I cringe when I go back and listen to some of my old episodes. Because let's be honest, like speaking, storytelling, the art of conversation, it's an art. It's also a science. I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I'm a student of the game, definitely not an expert, and I can get a lot better. But some people, whether it's nerves being live streamed or whatever, they go into like this weird mode of like performative, like, I don't know, like there's something weird that happens for some people. You haven't hit the red button, you're off camera talking, super chill, awesome human, chatting it up. The camera goes on and the record button goes on and like it gets stale or awkward or like robotic. And in those moments, I find myself having to carry the boats to the point where I've been on podcasts or other people's podcasts where I'm being interviewed and they're so, I don't know, God bless them. Like I'm not judging these people. I mean, I am, but it's not a big deal. It's just I'm noticing this. Some of these people froze up so much or just couldn't carry the conversation, or their questions were like dead ends or not in a flow, that I kind of like, as the guest, started interviewing them / just riffing and kind of took control of the podcast. And I'm sure they loved that as the end result because the episode, I would judge is a lot better. But it's an interesting thing. And so anyway, I'm not going to interview everybody, but I am going to interview some people. And I'm mainly excited to bring in some of the heaviest hitters I know in Austin on the show. And then some of the people online that I've been following for a long time or look up to, and just kind of go for the moonshot, the classic philosophy of shoot for the stars, aim high, you miss, land on the moon. The worst thing that happens when you ask someone is they say no or they ghost you. So what? Who cares? Which, side note, this is like a secret to life, your voice, your speech. Most people just don't ask for things. This is a viral post going around Twitter right now, and a lot of people have been talking about this. This goes for sales, marketing, business. This goes for dating and mating. Most people are just afraid to ask because they fear rejection. And what does rejection mean? Oh, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not good enough. I didn't do it right. Oh, no. There's no such thing as rejection. There's just redirection. It's like if you get rejected, someone's just like, no, thanks. Or let's say worst case scenario, no, and I think you're not doing a good job or whatever. Like say they put some bullshit judgment in there. A, how well do they even know you? This is the power of like cold calling or like, asking someone out, asking for money, an investment, asking for a business deal, asking for a collaboration, worst thing that happens, they say no. But way more often than you'd think, not only will people say yes, they will be stimulated by your ask and give you more than you asked for because they want to contribute and add value. This is like a huge secret to life. So if you take away nothing from this episode, just start asking for what you want boldly, radically. Stop giving a fuck. Just ask. If they say no, so what? The funny thing is, some of the big asks I've made, like pitching a client a coaching package or asking for, a free ticket to teach at a retreat or like an exchange or like, just ask like what I want. And sometimes it may not even make sense. Like in their register, their logic, they're like, you're asking for too much. Even if they said no initially or didn't respond, months or years later, they circle back and we enter into some kind of agreement. It's amazing what you can do when you just ask for it. And this brings me to another topic that comes up a lot in my coaching with clients. It's been a big part of my life. Still recovering people pleaser. And it's fawning, people pleasing, being a nice guy, a yes man or yes woman. And this is such an interesting thing because you talk about like the trauma responses, right? We've all heard them, I assume. You got fight or flight, right? And then freeze. Those are the classic ones. And then fawn. So fight's obvious. You just go aggro. You try to enter into a battle verbally. You're duking it out with a troll in the comments. It's fucking ridiculous. Or physically, sometimes you need to fight to protect your loved ones or your physical safety. So fight is like a really obvious one. A lot of people are frozen though, and they don't get into that because they can't access anger, rage, or like boundaries. So fight is a clear trauma response. We all know what it looks like. Freeze is really interesting because, and I've experienced all of these, as I'm sure you all have, and you can look back in your life in traumatic moments or emotionally charged moments when you go into these. You can learn a lot from these experiences. Freeze is kind of like disassociation. So it's just like if I just shut up, I don't speak, or I physically just clam up and I don't take the step forward or raise my hand or do the thing, they'll just stop noticing me and I'll be safe, right? Freeze is a really tough one because when you get emotionally or psychologically frozen, you have to unfreeze later and discharge that trauma and energy. So a lot of people go into freeze. And then a classic one, which is very seductive and easy. And, again, I've used all of these in my life and, there's nothing to be ashamed of. These are just normal ways your nervous system's trying to protect itself from like big energy. Flight, right? Just run away or ghost, don't respond, or just Irish goodbye, subtly leave the situation or just straight up make up an excuse. Oh, I need to go wash my hair. Oh, I need to go do this. Like, flight is a classic one. The insidious one that, fight, flight, freeze has been talked about for, 100 years in biology, and it's been spoken about in many concepts. Fawn is the interesting one. Fawning is like, oh, let me give you more. Let me be a people pleaser. Yeah, let me meet your needs and just give you what you want so you'll like me and I'll be safe. Or I can de-escalate from the danger, right? Fawning is the one I see the most when I coach men and women, honestly, where in dating, relationships, sexuality, trying to get what they want from their partner, in business, sales, asking for what they want creatively, being bold. Fawning it can feel like you're doing the right thing or you're creating connection when you're actually in a trauma response and your nervous system is overloaded, has too little energy, has too much energy, and you're trying to like mitigate it. So there's an epidemic, the real epidemic that you should be afraid of, not all this bullshit the CDC wants to tell you, is fawning and people pleasing. Being a yes man, being a white knight, being a savior, being an overgiver, being an emotional doormat. Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Oh, it's actually internally not okay. I'm self-betraying in this moment. I don't have the resources. I don't have the capacity right now to meet your need or say yes to the thing. But I'm going to do it anyway because it feels safer and it's going to protect my identity or it's going to regulate my emotions temporarily. How many of you have experienced that, right? And once you notice it, you can't unsee it, even though it'll still keep happening. You have to learn how to set boundaries. You have to learn how to ask for what you want, back to my earlier point. And you have to learn to step into, I don't give a fuck, not in an aggressive, ridiculous way. You can have compassion and be kind, but it's like, I can't regulate your nervous system right now. I'm regulating mine. It's self-care. I'm going to take care of me right now. And sometimes that means saying no. Just say no. How many people are afraid to say no to people in their lives? A boss, a colleague, a coworker, saying no on a first date, saying no in a sales conversation, saying no when you're being enrolled into something, whether it's a community, a cult, a society, a friend group. Can you say no? This is actually really important to grok and apply in your life. And I see it so much in coaching and mentorship, because if this goes on long enough, if you've been saying yes, 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 and self-betraying, not regulating yourself, not being clear with your capacity and your boundaries, people will learn that about you and unconsciously continue to cross them or ask for more. And then you get into this loop. There's books written about this. No More Mr. Nice Guy. There's all these different takes on this psychologically and in personal development right now. But again, when you say no and you mean it and you're taking care of yourself and you're not being an asshole, people trust you more, not less. Think about the most powerful people in your life you look up to. People with wealth, status, impact, big value, the big givers and movers and shakers. They're saying no way more than they say yes, because they're protecting their energy. They're protecting their time. There's an acronym I use with clients called EMIT, EMIT, which is time backwards, by the way. And it stands for energy, money, intention, and time. These are your resources. You can think about them like a video game, How much energy do you have? How full is your energy bar? Money, what's your wealth like? Bank account, where's that bar at? That one's easy to measure. Intention, so this is like willpower and intent. Consciousness, where's that at? That one's the most subtle, obviously. Energy is also subtle, but intention's the most subtle. And then time. Well, I have 1 hour. I have 20 minutes. And these are meta in terms of your whole day or year. They're also micro in that in a given moment, energy, money, intention, and time will be at a certain level, and you have to manage them well and manage them intelligently. So I take clients through like a full audit of this. Usually one is super abundant, one is scarce. Sometimes two are scarce. Sometimes they're all good, but you're stuck because, and again, the bottleneck is usually energy or intention. This is interesting. Time and money, as Pink Floyd taught us. Shout out Dark Side of the Moon. Time and money, it's a paradox. There's infinite of it because money is literally just made up. It's just a symbol to track value and keep score. Now, you could argue resources are scarce and blah, blah, blah. And then time, we all have the same amount of time to work with. It's both infinite and scarce. It's abundant in that we all are in time and moving through time. Which, side note, you guys know we're always time traveling? How else do you travel? You travel through time. We're time traveling right now. I just time traveled on camera. Time and money are always there. Energy and intention, a little more subtle. And those are the ones you can actually affect first often. So anyway, that's a fun framework I use a lot with clients. And I think it's super precise and powerful when you really commit to it and go into it. But back to people pleasers, when they are saying yes more than no, and again, it's self-betrayal. It's crossing your own boundaries or not getting clear. You set yourself up to drain those resources. And then you start feeling like a victim. And then we go into the triad: victim, perpetrator, savior. So someone's perpetrating on you because you're allowing them to by victimizing yourself by being a people pleaser. And then there's a savior, someone who comes and empowers you or says no for you or whatever. And that little triad describes so much online behavior, political behavior, social behavior, business behavior, etc. Relationship, sexual behavior. If you study that triad, victim, perpetrator, savior, so much of reality starts to make sense in human activity and behavior. It's pretty crazy. I don't even know who first came up with that or coined it, but it kind of doesn't matter. It's just in the collective consciousness now. So anyway, that's my little riff on that. Clip it. Some of the other things I want to talk about today are this whole picture that's forming about what is the future going to look like. And again, I keep returning this topic just because it's very hot, it's present, it's top of mind for me. because right now I'm going crazy researching, experimenting, and building AI agentic systems and just using this new emergent technology at a high level and going all in on it. And I'm so fascinated by it. I think it's extremely powerful. I think it's extremely confusing and misrepresented by a lot of people. They just don't know what they don't know. But that's just part of a bigger conversation, because this also ties into blockchain, something I haven't talked about here. Blockchain is also an emergent technology. It's extremely powerful and is going into the whole world. And this is all in the bucket of the internet itself, right? This global interconnected network. There's an amazing, I think he was a Russian biologist. He calls it the noosphere. Nous in Greek is mind. And this was before the internet. This is written 100, 150 years ago or more. The noosphere is like the collective consciousness. It's kind of Jungian as well, or the collective mental space of humanity. And if you want to go into the Gaian hypothesis of all of life, because animals have minds. It's not like it's like a human mind. Plants, I think, have a mind. Anyone who's eaten one of the sacred plants, you'll find out pretty quickly what the plant mind looks like. It's a whole universe in there. Does water have a mind? There's a whole new research aspect in water and how water is actually a liquid crystal and has consciousness and can store intention. Go look up, some of these water experiments about freezing water, putting intention into it, playing music, emotion, and how the water's crystal structure changes in ice or in its liquid form. And I think also in its gaseous form. This has all been measured scientifically, by the way. This is not woo-woo. Now you could say, oh, it's not conscious, Kevin. Like rocks aren't conscious. Trees don't have consciousness or mind. My dog, love them to death. They don't have consciousness or mind like I do. Okay, whatever. We could agree to disagree. I do think everything has consciousness, by the way. Now, the noosphere is insubstantiated and made imminent in the internet, because now we literally have these little devices that have this mental digital space of everyone on earth connected in real time. It's incredible. And so the internet and social media and apps and software and then blockchain, Bitcoin, all the other cryptocurrencies, all this stuff, and now AI, artificial intelligence, we're hurtling into a future that no one can predict or understand. And there's a lot of anxiety about it, of course. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of misinformation, disinformation about it. And there's a lot of opportunity and excitement. Because again, I am pro-future. I'm pro-human. I'm on team human and team life. I think that these technologies are going to make everything better if we steward them well with intention, mind, spirit, and a compassion and love for life itself and human thriving, which means every human being should have their basic needs met. Not every human being is going to be a crazy founder and form $1 billion company or, plant 1 billion trees or save, whole swaths of nature or whatever. The big builders will, but every human being is going to benefit from all these technologies. And they already are. Like, it's kind of obvious. Like, look what we're doing right now. You're looking at a rock that was mined from the earth that's covered in runes and circuits. And because of the internet and all these beautiful devices and fields, they're electromagnetic fields, we can have this conversation kind of asynchronously. If I was live streaming, we could have it synchronously. It's a miracle. It's amazing. It's magic. This is all the magic that the medieval alchemists were writing about, all the mystics and saints and gurus. They were talking about this. And there's a consciousness level to this where if you eat an entheogen or psychedelic, if you practice forms of yoga, meditation, pranayama, you can enter these states without technology. And this is stuff like telepathy, psychokinesis, whatever, which again, CIA and others have disclosed this stuff's fucking real. They've studied it extensively. Ancient texts have been writing about it for thousands and thousands of years. But now everyone can do it because of the internet and these devices. It's kind of crazy. And we're going to need both, right? There's like two paths. There's like ultra humanity or super humanity, where we awaken our psychic gifts, self-healing ability, our cellular and molecular DNA turns on, and we activate how miraculous this beautiful vessel is. The body itself is full of mysteries. Science has no idea what's going on. They say they do, but they're reductionist and materialist. They look at it like a machine. They can't explain the placebo effect. 50+% of healing is placebo effect. I don't know if y'all know that. Again, don't take my word for any of this. Go do the research. Go look at the papers. All this stuff's been published. They don't understand shit. Science and medicine have done amazing, miraculous things. I'm pro science and medicine. But let's not pretend we understand the human brain and body. I mean, this is a crazy stat, and I might butcher it, but someone can Jamie me in the comments here. The human brain has, I don't know the number, it's billions of neurons. Every one of those neurons has at least or around 10,000 connections to other neurons. So just do the math. The math there is that your brain, this organic, beautiful thing in your head, and by the way, the brain isn't just in your head, it's in your heart, it's in your gut, it's distributed throughout your body. You have neurons in your heart, you have neurons in your organs, you have neurons in your gut. Yeah, the brain is like a central command center, but go look up what the human nervous system is in like the body worlds, like studies where they've taken cadavers and done this. The nervous system's like this tree that grows out of your body from your spinal cord and brain. It's distributed. But what I just shared, the billions of neurons, I don't know how many there are, 10 billion. Go check out the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Go check out the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton. There's a lot of incredible people who have gone deep into this. Nassim Haramein is another one I know talks about this. Do the math. Billions of neurons, I don't know how many, 10,000 connections each. That math, in terms of potential network effect and connections, is a bigger number than the number of atoms in the visible universe. What the fuck? It's insane. Think about how crazy that is. Billions and trillions of atoms just make up everything in this room, and then combine that in the whole universe. The human brain has more connections than all of that, which brings us to like a 4-dimensional or like multi-dimensional hypothesis of consciousness, where it's not that we're in the universe is inside our consciousness, because our consciousness is bigger than this visible universe. It's just crazy. It's crazy to think about. But anyway, we're not using even, 5, 10% of that power. So imagine if we could get to 50%, 60%, 100%. Movies like Limitless and Lucy have explored this in kind of science fiction. I love those movies. But there will be pathways in the future. One will be, and they'll be mixed. There's a gray area, there's a gradient, there's thousands of them, but there's 2 buckets, I would say. Superhumanity, ultra-humanity. Humans that can heal themselves, humans that can commune with nature and each other, activate the full power of human creativity, healing, consciousness. And then there'll be transhumanism, which is the one that's being peddled by all these fucking technocrats and these psychopathic, the billionaire elite class, many of them. They want to go full cybernetic. They want to put a chip in your brain, the mark of the beast, whatever you want to call it. They want to chip you up and go cybernetic or cyborg, where technology enters your biology and you're jacked into the matrix. And oh yeah, by the way, if you tweet something or post something on Facebook that's against the current establishment, well, they might increase the number of ads that are beamed into your dreams or turn off your consciousness. Super scary, super dystopian, dark as fuck. I don't think anyone who's watching this wants that, I'm assuming. And right now, Elon and what he's doing with XAI, there's other companies out there, there's labs and studies. I actually have a brother in my men's community that I run that worked in one of these labs in the past. People that are paraplegic, that have various neurological disorders and degeneration, they can get a chip and see again or move again, because it can actually directly stimulate the brain, and they can control a computer with their mind or use their body again and go through radical medical procedures and healing. I think that's awesome. So I'm not anti that, but I don't want a chip in my brain. And I don't think you do either. That's what's scary about the future, because there is a benevolent solar punk future where if robots can build robots, we're going to enter post-scarcity and labor is going to go to zero. The cost of goods will go to zero. Because if robots that can do most things a human can, just like basic labor, controlled by AI, obviously, the robots have to have intelligence. If they can build other robots, then, and say anyone could buy this, they're projecting, Optimus, which again, Elon's project, other things. China has many of these humanoid robots. There's other, like the MIT lab is doing stuff like this. It might cost as much as a car eventually. So $30K, you buy a robot, you have to give it raw materials, of course, which you have to pay for. And then that robot can build another robot. And you just see how this gets into a spiral of hyperabundance post-scarcity with the material world. And obviously people are going to do stupid shit. I want my robot to build me weapons, or I want it to, like, there's going to, like, these tools are neutral, just like a knife is neutral. You can cut up an avocado and make guacamole, or you can go fucking try to stab someone. That's the human user. The tool isn't evil. Now, these tools are much more advanced than a knife. And obviously, it goes without saying, Marshall McLuhan talks a lot about this, one of the great theorists that predicted our times. We shape our tools, but our tools also shaping us. Even when we invented fire, we didn't invent fire, we discovered it. When we made stone tools, the oldest technologies, obviously the oldest technology is storytelling and language, by the way. That's innate. But anyway, those technologies shaped us, because now we could cook meat and make it bioavailable. Now we could shape and cut stone, we could cut wood. Completely transformed us. These tools are on another level. And because the algorithms are controlled by like 6 different companies, of course they're shaping us and programming us. So your consciousness and discernment is needed now more than ever. And you can't give up agency or just blame the tool. AI is evil. Social media is evil. iPhone's evil. The fuck are you talking about? Yes, are there bad actors and bad faith actors that maybe are evil, trying to extract your data and shape you and culturally engineer you, manufacture consent? Of course. But you're in control. You can turn off notifications. You can create sovereign tech. You can choose not to do certain things. And you can create hyperabundance with it. You can run a business. You can create art. You can create connections, form communities, form benevolence that funnels into the real world. So this is kind of the solar punk benevolent future I see. Again, both these futures already exist simultaneously and everything in between. And they're only going to do more of that. And it's going to increase and intensify and get weirder and weirder. But if I had robots, what do I want them to do? Well, I want them to fix my house, remove toxic materials, replace everything, and renovate. So I have a beautiful, artistically shaped house covered in solar panels with an expert water filtration. They'll dig a well. They'll start building out my permaculture greenhouse, my aquaponic and hydroponic system. They'll be growing and picking food for me. Maybe they'll even be herding and raising cattle or animals. They'll be terraforming my land to restore natural ecosystems, make sure everything's irrigated. There's a diversity of plants, animals, and insects. Just think about the limits of this. They're almost unlimited. It's all your imagination. So if you let these Hollywood bullshit movies, if you let the fucking doomer news shape how you're going to use the technology, of course you're going to lose. It's an L. I'm trying to get the W here. And humanity needs some W's right now. There's a lot of chaos in the world, a lot of uncertainty. And then, of course, on the dark side, we don't need to go into this. There's a litany of fear, drone strikes, drones building drones, and like cybernetic fucking implants, and just dystopian robots that are like police officers, and all this dark shit. We're already seeing this emerge in China. There's police departments in the US that would love, drone dogs or robot policemen. They're already doing it. They've already experimented with this. And again, it's not all bad. There's a guy in a hostage situation or has a bomb. Do you want to send in a police officer that has a family at home, or you want to send in a robot to defuse the situation non-lethally? Hopefully. So there's incredible use cases for all this stuff, but the future is going to be determined by consciousness and our intelligence. It's going to be determined by our philosophies and values. The technology's downstream of that. And that's really what I want to convey here. You don't have to use AI. You don't have to use social media. It's funny because some of the most successful, I've worked with some of them as clients, some of the most successful people I've worked with that are healers, consultants, teachers, or coaches, or whatever, they don't have a website. They don't have a Facebook page. They don't have an Instagram account. They don't have a Pinterest board. And they're making 6-7 figures, just word of mouth. Most of them have an email address, though, which is interesting. You have to either text them, phone call them, or send an email. So you don't have to use the technologies, but I've fallen into this trap many times myself, even recently with AI. If you talked to me 3.5 months ago, I would have told you AI is garbage. I don't use it. I now probably, I've done the math, and I'm a fucking student. I don't know anything, but I'm diligently researching, experimenting every single day. I'm probably already in the top like 0.3% of users using Claude Code, using ChatGPT Codex, using Perplexity, Gemini, all these structures to enhance my business and build out agentic AI systems that are automated, incredible research, incredible density of, almost anything a VA can do, I'm replacing in my business as we speak. And now, admittedly, I'm obsessed. When I get into something, I go all in. I have a proclivity for this. I like it. I love it. So it's easy for me to just binge research and experiment and just really quickly go from 0 to 1. A lot of people are afraid because they're afraid it's going to take away our humanness, right? It's going to write our articles and books. It's going to direct our movies. It's going to make our art. Yes, it's terrible. There's slop. Fuck AI slop. Clip it. I get it. It's uncomfortable. It sucks. It's annoying. But humans already did all that. You guys realize how much slop humans generated before AI or even pre-internet? Think about tabloids, CNN, fucking those cheesy, aggressive, hard closing copywriters and editors that are in your DMs every day. A lot of this is slop made by humans. Now with AI, they can do it 100x faster and more sloppy. So again, it's not the technology, it's humans. If you want to look at who's causing all the problems and who's creating all the solutions, you merely need to find a mirror, my friend. It's not the technology. And it is the technology because it's so powerful now that the future is now hitting an acceleration point where, here in May 2026, the world is unrecognizable from January 2026. Geopolitically, technologically, business-wise, the investment cycle, the stock market, the cultural conversation. Things are so weird. And I do think COVID had a lot to do with this. I want you to imagine with me, do a thought experiment. What you were doing, who you were talking to, the projects, the travel, the love you were sharing, the stories you were sharing pre-COVID versus post-COVID. COVID was a bifurcation point. The timeline split. We are living in a post-COVID era where cultural and societal conversations have completely changed because the world went through an entire crisis together, arguably for the first time since World War II. It's crazy. The whole world experienced a traumatic shock together. And a lot of institutions and cultural movements and all this crazy shit happened in real time. The whole world watched it on these things and interfaced with it. And there's a different reality now. And a lot of the top thinkers I'm, listening to, and the philosophers and all the amazing people who are really having these deep conversations, things have sped up since 2020, right? So I guess end of 2019, it kind of started. 2020, it kicked off. 2021, it was in a furious blow up. And then it was kind of all over by 2023. That was only 3 years ago. Look at 2023 to 2026. How much has happened? Insane. ChatGPT released November 2022. So we're only 4 years into AI, which is the new kid on the block. It's pretty insane when you really think about it. The other one I'm really bullish on and I've been, I've known about and have been interfacing with since 2012, 2013 is Bitcoin and blockchain technology, which I haven't talked about on this podcast. So that'll be the next segment here. And honestly, I should probably do a podcast at some point just about the money itself and currency and the history of finance. Something I'm very, very interested in, It's funny. It's kind of, I'm the black sheep in my family, mom, dad, brother, extended family. I love all of you. And I'm so grateful for being the heir of the Orosz clan. And I deeply appreciate all the lessons. Some of them were hard, but so much of my family's in finance. So it's very near and dear to me. My mom is an accountant. My dad worked in the oil industry, in financing. My brother is an accountant. My uncle was a banker, grandfather and a great-grandfather in oil. Just a lot of financial services stuff. And I grew up being like, do I want to do this? No, fuck that. I wanted to be a lawyer. That's what I entered. Shout out University of Texas at Austin. Hook 'em. I entered as a political science major and thought I wanted to be a lawyer because I'm good at talking. I hated math. And I watched a lot of Law and Order with my mom. She loves it. I thought going into law would be this, cool, grandiose, like, objection, Your Honor, and like all this like theater. Turns out that's not how it works at all. That's all fictional film. As soon as I saw what a law office looked like, which I would go with my mom sometimes and work in one and hang out with her while she was at work. She was a CPA for many law firms. I was like, this is a nightmare of paperwork and bureaucracy and bullshit. And then I took Psych 101 here at UT, and I also took a philosophy course reading Kant and Hume and Nietzsche. Quickly switched to a psychology major, minor in philosophy. So anyway, now all that being said, I've always loved tech. So even as a little kid, I am, but I don't really do it anymore, but I was an avid gamer. So I was obsessed with video games. I thought they were incredible. I loved computers. I used to build my own computers when I was like in middle school. I think I built my first computer when I was like 13 or 14. So I'd go to Fry's Electronics or Best Buy, buy the chassis, buy all the parts, CPU, graphics card, RAM, power supply, the motherboard, all the little pieces and components and circuit boards, and I'd go home and build it myself. I built many computers and learned about how to mod. I took computer science in high school. I learned a little bit of Java, a little bit of C, quickly learned I wasn't going to be a coder. I hated that. Despite my father really encouraging me, seeing how my aptitude, how much I love all this tech stuff, and him back then being like, hey, you should, think about computer programming, computer science. And I was just like, I can't do this. Similar to math, I'm fascinated by math. I think it's so elegant and beautiful. Like, you guys realize we discovered math, right? We didn't invent it. Like, math is the language of reality and matter in many ways. And code, which is now the digital version, which is using mathematics and algorithms to generate all this crazy digital shit. I was not good at math. I was not good at coding. And, I was in gifted and talented programs, and I was constantly being told by teachers and parents and stuff that I was gifted, which I don't know if that's true, but I thought, I should do this. But then if I'm not good at it, I'm like, fuck this. Now, I was good at language and writing and speaking. So that's why I thought I'd do law. And then I got into psychology, thought I'd do that. Long story short, all of that led to me when I left Austin and moved to California, moved to the Bay Area, Santa Cruz. Beautiful, incredible place. I met a dear friend who was working in a startup downtown. And he was a master coder and like hacker type, technologist, super giga brain kind of guy. We started hanging out a lot, and he introduced me. He's like, hey, we've got Raspberry Pis, which are basically just a tiny, most basic baby version of a computer, running a mesh network node, which is like a private internet that's mining. Some of them are mining, and some of them are just earning by being this internet node, Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I think when I heard about it, Bitcoin's price was like, I don't know, $150, $200. Someone can pull up the price chart from like 2012 or whatever, 2013. And I was just like blown away. Wait, what the fuck is this? Blockchain technology. It's internet money. It's magical internet money. The Bitcoin white paper comes out by this anonymous person, Satoshi Nakamoto. Was it a collective of people? Was it one master coder? Was it the CIA or NSA? No one knows. And anyone who says they know is full of shit. Anyone who's claiming to be Satoshi, you can be sure these are PR stunts and trolls. They have no fucking clue who it is. In these deep internet forums, right before the financial collapse in 2008, which the timing is interesting, there is like a secret history of blockchain and like what it means. And like, that's for another time. There's a lot of documentaries and movies out on it you can go look at or go do your own research. This white paper just appears in these internet forums and explains how to create a decentralized, immutable, transparent ledger, which is just a spreadsheet, a fancy one, written on code that was the most elegant, amazing idea to generate a new form of currency and a store of value, Bitcoin. This is the Bitcoin white paper. You can go read it. Go find the Bitcoin white paper online. Jarvis, pull up the Bitcoin white paper. Computer, navigate a new tab to Google and type in Bitcoin white paper and just read it. Super elegant, super simple, conceptual idea. And then Bitcoin is birthed. So, 2008, Bitcoin cost nothing. It was like less than a penny, a couple pennies. And back then you could go to websites and mine Bitcoin. You could mine it on your machine. So mining Bitcoin just means your computer's hardware, your CPU, GPU, which can crunch a bunch of numbers in real time from the hardware running, solves complex mathematical equations. You could think about them like puzzles. It's basically just crunching numbers and math to mine the next Bitcoin in the blocks, these little segments in a blockchain, which is just a digital ledger. Now, this is super, obviously some of those people, I mean, famously someone paid for a pizza back then with Bitcoin. And at like today's prices, he paid like hundreds of millions of dollars for that pizza. I know a good buddy who paid his rent in Bitcoin way back in the day. And that Bitcoin is now worth, $60 million. So Bitcoin is the fastest growing and top performing asset of all time. We hit the peak somewhat recently when old Donnie J, Mr. Donald Trump, when he was elected. And a little bit after that, we were in the, this bull market phase. Bitcoin kissed $120,000 for one Bitcoin. Incredible, right? It's a big come up from being worth less than a penny in 2008. There's no stock, gold, silver, any precious metal. There's no asset class that has had a larger acceleration than Bitcoin. And then, I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, although I'm becoming one slowly as we see these markets. A bunch of other cryptocurrencies. Now there's hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions. They're all forked from the original code of Bitcoin. The first one was Ethereum. There's things like Litecoin, XRP, on and on and on. XLM, Stellar Lumens, blah, blah, blah. Bitcoin Cash, blah, 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 blah. There's all these coins that got forked, which just means a team of coders and developers took the Bitcoin blockchain, which is open source, which is another big part of all this. It's completely transparent. You could create your own coin today if you really wanted to. And they made their own rules. That's all it is. Like the code is just rules for their own coin and chain. A chain is their own blockchain ledger. And Ethereum is the other big one. I'm not bullish on Ethereum. I mean, there's nothing here that's financial advice, to be clear. This is for entertainment, educational purposes only. But I'm actually now, as of today's date, Bitcoin is the only one I'm interested in, really, even though I do hold many altcoins. Everything that's not Bitcoin is an altcoin. A Bitcoin maximalist, which is kind of this cult that believes Bitcoin is the only one worth anything, they see anything that's not Bitcoin as a shit coin, and as in it's trash, and it'll eventually go to zero. I don't think Bitcoin will ever go to zero, by the way. All the boomers and financial people that told you that now have billions of dollars of inflows into Bitcoin ETFs, which are stock market devices and packages that people are putting in 401ks, investment firms. They're now buying Bitcoin by the billions. Jamie Dimon, Larry Fink, all these clowns, BlackRock, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, these huge hedge funds, they talk shit about Bitcoin for years. Now they can't buy enough of it. Lesson in there. So I remember, I think I bought Bitcoin back then when I first heard about it, 2013, 14, it was like $200. And then I sold it when it was at $400. I doubled my money. Wow. If I had held, I would be a millionaire right now. I'm not as of today's day. I will be one day for sure. And then I really got into trading it. My first cycle was 2016, 17. And then the next, these cycle as in there's a kind of a 4-year cycle pattern. By the way, the stock market kind of follows this as well. There's it's basically the money market / asset class. This goes across everything: stocks, bonds, commodities, real estate, and crypto. They all follow these little like ebbs and flows, right? So this is now my 4th cycle. I did 2016 on. 2020 was by far the best cycle I was in because I was actually prepared. I didn't know what I was doing in 2016. And then this most recent cycle, I kind of peaked in 24, 25, and now we're in the next cycle. So all this to say, blockchain itself is super fascinating and super powerful as a concept and as a technology, because let's just talk about money and how it works. In the past, there was no money. Money was invented. Currency was invented. How did you do store value in the past? Well, it was survival. So if I hunt and kill this deer, or I kill one of my goats or a chicken, or I grow a bunch of crops, or I find a tool from a warrior I had to kill because he was going to go kill my family. Those are resources, and you just trade, you barter. You don't realize how long humans just bartered. It's crazy. For millions, depends on where you draw the line on when hominids, humans appeared, Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, Homo sapiens, Homo erectus. Side note, I think a lot of the archaeological record and a lot of these scientists are ideologically captured by institutions. So I don't think we actually know the real history of human evolution, by the way. Another episode for that. Anyway, for at least hundreds of thousands of years, we were probably bartering because that's the only thing you could do. And then someone had a brilliant idea to capture, instead of just trading my chicken for, a pound of your sweet potatoes, or trading 2 cows for 6 of your goats, or whatever. Barter trade, obvious, intuitive, still runs today, obviously. Let's represent that with something. And maybe they started collecting pebbles or seashells or whatever. And then people, when they realize, oh, wow, there's these shiny rocks in the earth that are rare, and we love them for jewelry, and there's also whole stories, secret history that, gold, silver have magical properties or spiritual properties. Then they're like, oh, let's represent our resources with this precious, scarce item, gold, right? And then now we get towards currency, where eventually someone's like, we should mint or create coins or currency. And precious metals were that. And then we just kind of skip ahead. There's the revolution that happens in Europe in the Dark Ages. China did it as well in a different way. And basically the Medici family, big fan of the Medici family. I had the pleasure of actually going to Florence last year. Absolutely incredible. The Knights Templar are somewhere in here. The ancient Swiss, or the medieval Swiss. They formed banking, and they took currency to a new level. And then you could argue that, the Jewish culture at the time / other conglomerates of different cultures, came up with loans, interest, banking. All the stuff we have today was kind of built out in the Middle Ages. Obviously, Rome, Greece, these great empires, they were using currency, of course. They had the emperor's headshot on the currency, so you knew where it was coming from. And this whole process has just accelerated and gone crazy to where today we just have a little digital number that's our bank account with, Charles Schwab or Wells Fargo or Chase or whatever, or Cash App or Venmo. So it's all digital now. You guys realize 99% of money is just digital. It's not real in the physical sense. I think it's like 1, 2, or 3%. Fact check my numbers, but is physical money, dollar bills, y'all, that you can actually touch. And there's a lot of problems with money now and the banking system. Go watch the Zeitgeist trilogy of films. Go watch the myriad films about, go watch The Big Short, on how fucked the money system is now, because it's all fractional reserve debt. It's money markets where you can sell and arbitrage money. Our government prints money out of thin air. Most money is loans and debt. For every $1, 9 debt dollars get created. There's all this crazy math. I'm not going to go into all of it. If you're interested in this, I really recommend researching it. Money is broken to the point where, obviously it works though, which is why it hasn't changed. It still works. I can still go across the street and buy a cup of coffee with my magical US internet money. Or I can, I don't carry cash often, but if I do, yeah, $5, let me get a pastry, whatever. This system is crazy to the point where everything's running on debt. As of today's date, I believe the US debt is at 35 or $36 trillion. Can you even imagine what $1 trillion is? It's 1,000 billion. A billion's 1,000 million. It's an unimaginable amount of money, such that the interest payment, because that's all borrowed, loaned money, fake debt money, the interest on that debt that the US government has, the one you're paying taxes to and tells you you've been a naughty boy. The reason they're not bankrupt is because they can print money. The Federal Reserve is not a US institution. It's a private thing. It's independent. All the presidents who fought against the Federal Reserve, there's many of them, and other government organizations, weird things happen to them, or they politically get character assassinated. Some of them literally got assassinated. It's a whole history in U.S. government about this. And then there's the World Bank, and there's central banking all over the world. It's a big economic war happening right now between BRICS and the US dollar, because you want to be the global reserve currency. Ray Dalio has an amazing video and book on this as well, if you want to understand it. So it's crazy. The interest we owe on the US debt is higher than the US military budget in total. And we have the biggest military budget on planet Earth. I don't know what it is. Is it a trill? I don't know. That's crazy. That's bankruptcy. This is a runaway train that is unsustainable. And the bankers and the globalists that, are in charge of all this know that. And they're just going to run up the score. This is crazy. Again, I'm paraphrasing a lot of these stats. If I get them wrong, don't Karen me in the comments. Just go look it up and situate yourself in the conversation. The point is not the stats and facts and figures. It's the concept I'm trying to get you to join me in. During COVID, I believe it was in 2020, the US printed 20% of all money that's ever been created in US dollars. That's how much money they printed to offset the economic downfall of everyone having to shelter in place and be at home and the mass economic repercussions of that. So just think about that. Inflation is like a hidden tax if you're not in the asset owning elite class, because inflation just basically means your dollar's spending value just goes down. And side note, I believe it's 1971, the gold standard ended. So it used to be the US dollar was a promissory note. It was a Federal Reserve note now, but it was a note. It's basically just a symbol that represents a piece of gold in Fort Knox or somewhere. So back in the day, you could go with your hard-earned cash and exchange it for gold, a hard physical asset, a commodity, a store of value, whatever you want to think about it as. 20% of all money was printed in 1 year. That means if you were a good boy and got a job and were corporate, white picket fence, 2 kids in a car, mortgage, 401k, all your investments, all your retirement, your pension, blah, blah, blah. 20% went up in smoke when they turned that money printer on. 20% of your whole life that you worked hard for to provide for your wife and children got evaporated when they printed that amount of money because of macroeconomics and all this hoopla speak, hocus pocus speak of money market systems and how money works. That sounds to me like a crime against humanity. Whatever you believe about America, to be clear, I'm a patriot. I'm proud to be American. I'm even prouder to be a Texan. I love this country. I think it's one of the worst countries in the world, except for it's better than all the others. I don't actually believe that. There are many countries I admire and love. Japan is one of them. Italy, Spain, the UK, Germany, France, Portugal, Mexico, Costa Rica. I think every country has its incredible pros and cons. And I just happen to be born in America. So I'm a patriot. I love America. I'm an American. Okay. America. Team America. And I love Texas. I love the state I live in. Fuck yeah, brother. Texas. I'm a Texan. So to be clear, I've studied a lot of this stuff and I will steel man and straw man it both to understand it. And I hate the corruption and abuse that happens because of all these systems, economics being one of the main ones. But I still love this country and I believe in its mission, vision, and values back in 1776 and some of the genius savants that founded this country on first principles. So let's just be clear about that before the trolls come out and start going psycho, or the radical leftists. Fuck them. All this stuff I'm explaining is to bring us back to blockchain. Now, I don't think the whole world's going to run on Bitcoin and Bitcoin's going to become the global reserve currency. It might be a lot cooler if it did. I don't think that's going to happen. But what blockchain represents is an incredible advance in technology, and the ledger system that goes back to the Medici family and the Medici Bank and all the things that happened in medieval Europe, where, again, the blockchain is transparent, immutable, it's open source, And although the price is volatile, and again, that's the tricky part, people get caught in the meme coin or altcoin craze. If I just want to make money, it's like a casino gambling. It's very volatile. Now, what if I told you the US dollar is volatile? Go look up a chart of this buying power of $1 since 1971. It looks like this. This is why our parents' generation, again, I'm a millennial. My parents are baby boomers. Their parents were the great generation or the silent generation or whatever. They could buy a house for like $6,000. Now, I mean, you're lucky if you get a nice house in Austin that's rent for $6,000, unfurnished. You know, it's crazy how inflation and economics just affect our lives so deeply and determine quality of life, our spending power, our ability to invest, our ability to create generational wealth for our family, our bloodline, our children. It's pretty crazy when you look at all of it. Now, the way to visualize Bitcoin or blockchain, because it's hard to wrap your mind around if you're not technologically studied or financially studied. They're both opaque, kind of occulted systems. Money itself and finance and economics is a whole fucking cluster. Technology, code is a cluster, and blockchain is a cluster, as in clusterfuck to understand. If you're not studying it or like using it and like, again, we fear what we don't understand. So when you learn about something and dispel fear through understanding and learning, it's amazing. Anyway, you can imagine it. One way to visualize it is like, imagine a massive hallway of like lock boxes or safe security deposit boxes where you can store your money, your Bitcoin. But there's a glass case. So you can look up any wallet in the world that has a Bitcoin address. It's just like this long, key. I think it's hexadecimal. It's just letters and numbers. You can look up anyone's address, how much Bitcoin's in that wallet. You can see it. Now, you don't know who owns that wallet. It's still anonymous and private, unless you get doxxed or, whatever. But you can see into it. You can't see into bank accounts. Think about that, how crazy that is. Transparency is a core value of the human principles we want to build the future on, by the way. Transparency is important. It's a safeguard against corruption, safeguard against abuse, secrecy, all the bullshit that's causing a lot of the problems. It's immutable in that the Bitcoin code is sacred. So the code is law, the code are rules. Some of these economic characters and clowns that are running the world economy, they change the rules all the time because they have lobbyists and they can influence or threaten legislation and just change the rules. Crazy. You cannot change the rules of Bitcoin. The code is law. Now, Bitcoin has forked. There's a Bitcoin community of the core developers and coders that are working on it in an open source fashion. Open source just basically means we're not going to hide our updates and code. We're going to publish them so everyone can see and do what you want with it. You can make your own coin or you can propose a change to the network. And Bitcoin has slowly upgraded. It's kind of an old guard. It's the old heads in crypto. These new kids are in, just a lot of meme coins and stuff. It's immutable in that you can't just change it. You need consensus. I don't even understand the full gamut of how it works because I'm not as interested on the governance side, although I think it's really powerful, but the code's immutable. And every transaction on Bitcoin is stored in this ledger. And the other cool thing is its ease of use. So this is why a lot of the third world has adopted crypto. You realize how much of the world is unbanked, as in they don't have bank accounts. If you're living in Nigeria and earning Nigerian currency, it's actually a lot better to get like a US or Euro pegged stable coin or Bitcoin or something that's going to hold its value and store your money in that. And if you need to send money overseas to your family or whatever, you're working overseas, a lot of these people are using cryptocurrency. And now the legislators and all these characters are like, it's for criminals and the dark web and for buying drugs and prostitutes. Yeah, the dark web used it as well, but that's such a small percentage. You know what most drugs, weapons, and criminal activity happens on? The fucking US dollar, man. The fuck are we talking about? So there's a lot of straw man arguments against Bitcoin. It uses too much power and energy to mine it. Same thing with AI data centers. The power and energy that they're using is not the problem. Go look at how much your refrigerator uses, how much water a golf course uses, how much a military base or a factory producing toxic food that's literally carcinogenic and will kill you if you eat it your whole life. How much power and water are they using? No one bats an eye. No one brings that up. And again, new technologies kind of go through this phase. First, it's unknown, then it's ridiculed and hated, then it's accepted and widespread. Like, this is how most cultural zeitgeists move. And again, I see both sides. I'm not saying I'm pro or con, like the specific use cases. And of course, we should manage resources like clean, fresh water and how we generate power in a way more intelligent and hyper abundant way, of course. But you railing against new technologies like blockchain and AI gets exactly nothing done, especially when your troll Facebook comment is using Meta's data center and creating more waste than just you doing something about it. Side note. So anyway, cross-country payments, international payments, the speed and use, it's incredible. If you want to move like $1 million through the US banking system, A, it has to be on a business day. B, you're going to have massive fees. C, it's going to cost money and time. It's not going to get there for 5 or 6 days. And then it might get flagged and held up. If you want to move massive amounts of money across the world to a foreign account or even to a family account, you have to get approval. You have to go through their bullshit customer service. You have to pay a lot of money. The fees can be hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on the amount. And it's like, yeah, that'll arrive in 6 to 7 business days. And you did it on a Friday. So that's actually like more than a week and a half. Terrible dinosaur tech. If I had $1 million in Bitcoin and we trusted each other, you send me your Bitcoin address. So the Bitcoin address is really powerful because again, it's that glass case safety deposit box. I can't pull anything out of your account with your address. Everyone has private keys that unlocks that safety deposit box. It's code. And you keep those keys as safe as you would keep your password to your bank account, right? But anyone can send money in. If you go to my link tree right now, my Bitcoin address is there. So if you want to tip me in Bitcoin, you can just pop $5 of Bitcoin into my address. And I'll be very grateful for you. Even though it'll be anonymous, I won't know who sent it. The other beautiful thing about this is the anonymity and transparency. It's a paradox. But if I want to move $1 million and I trust someone and they're living in Indonesia or wherever, or Japan, I can send $1 million of Bitcoin. It'll arrive in 15 minutes and it may only cost a few dollars if you send it on the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Come on. It's incredible. It's peer-to-peer money. Okay. Peer-to-peer means you and I can transact. We don't need a bank, an institution, or a gatekeeper to control or tell us how we do it or when we do it or why. It's incredible. It's the future of money. I don't know if Bitcoin will be it. Maybe the new Satoshi will create an even better one that's safer and more robust, et cetera, et cetera. But it's very fascinating. Blockchain technology has many other uses that are very fascinating. There's a whole world of applications. It's not just internet money. We could vote using blockchain. We could track physical resources and commodities using blockchain and manage and distribute them really well. We can do verification and identity protocols that are ironclad because you're using the same technology. A blockchain is, again, the same stuff I'm talking about Bitcoin, which is this magic internet money, can be used for anything. When we want to build the communities, villages, and governance of the future. Because as it said in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Luo Guozhong, the Iliad of China, what was long united must divide. And as empires rise and fall, when everything's centralized and dystopian and big brothered, nature has a way to move things out into decentralization and balkanization. Balkanization is just like an archipelago of islands and communities and cultures. And we're seeing this in real time in our culture right now. It's pretty actually fascinating to see. There's a real beauty in the future where do we want to be in a one world government or in mega smart cities with a cybernetic transhumanist dark timeline that's dystopian as fuck and is not a world you want to raise sons and daughters? Or are we going to decentralize? And I'm not saying like Texas should secede and let's go back to the Confederacy or some crazy shit. Like, this is much more micro. This is my village, my community. Maybe we're running our own blockchain for local goods and services so we can transact without these middlemen absorbing fees and vampirically fucking our shit up. We have our own fleet of robots running on local LLMs that are on our own servers that we program to be benevolent. They're not even touching the internet. We have our own mesh network, so we have our own private internet, an intranet that runs on our own hardware that we built. And we have a beautiful village of people we care about. 150 families raising their children, growing crops, all organic, of course, raising chickens, cattle, building incredible architecture, making incredible content and art and media, running incredible businesses that are hyper abundant. Because although they're in our own closed system of our community, the community, 20 miles down the road in the forest, we control the hills because we have our land and a trust. Maybe we've even formed a church so we can avoid a lot of the bullshit pitfalls with all the old system. It's completely sovereign. We have our own basically corporation or community in the advanced sovereign version. That's a whole nother episode, is like the sovereign movement and tech and legality and lawful versus legal and all that. It's a rabbit hole some of you will be familiar with. We're trading with the other communities and transacting, and we're all making a ton of money. And we're creating a beautiful world for our kids. And we're just super healthy because we're living close to nature. And even though we're using AI and robots and hyper advanced tech, it's not emitting harmful EMFs. You realize there's a way, like these things have radiation and all this EMF we're bathed in. It's not good for us. It's because the frequencies are fucked up. There's bioharmonics in electromagnetic frequency. Your heart is an electromagnetic generator, by the way, as is your brain. Your whole body is, all your cells. We could build tech that's bioharmonic with us, that heals us with its EM fields, not harms us. We can use EM fields to grow crops. There's all this research out there. I'm not making any of this up. There's people that are hyper intelligent, smarter than me, that are already building all this stuff and researching it. None of it's mainstream, obviously. That's the future I want to live for and build for. And my storytelling and voice, my brand and business, my clients, the events I run, this podcast, the KO show, it's all pointing at that. And I'm going to keep doing my part to speak into that reality. Because if we can't speak it and describe it, how are we going to live in it? So that's what I'm all about. That's what I stand for. I hope you'll join me and do the research, come to your own conclusions, use critical thinking, use skepticism, but not cynicism, to stress test all this stuff and be healthy, wealthy, wise, and loved. Let's create beautiful marriages and relationships between masculine and feminine that heals all these old wounds. Let's transform money and economics to create an abundant future where everyone has more than enough. And let's eat pure, clean, organic food that's rich in nutrients. Let's drink pure spring water. Let's bathe in the sun. Let's dance, play, and sing, and create a benevolent future for humanity. And if people don't want to be a part of that, that's okay. They can be in a smart city, in a social credit score with a chip in their brain, and have AI slop pumped into their neurons 24/7. And that's their choice. Like, I'm not, I am kind of libertarian in a sense where it's like, I don't want to take away people's choice or free will. I want to actually empower it. And if they're choosing that willfully, cool. Fuck them though. I don't want to transact with them potentially. And I don't want them teaching my children or like influencing my culture or tribe. I'm going to love them from way over there. Now, if they're curious and they want to enter into negotiation or agreement and maybe realize maybe I should unplug from some of this shit and take a few things from what you're doing, of course, I'll be willing and waiting with open arms. Boom. That's today's episode, y'all. I'd love for you to subscribe and follow the show if you haven't already. Leave a comment, send me an email, shoot me a message. You'll see everything in the show notes. This is the KO show, and I'm so excited to be back in the saddle, back on the mic, bringing the goods to y'all. And I hope you'll be entertained, informed, inspired by all this. And if you haven't already, start your own podcast, start your own show. Go forth into the future without fear. KO signing off.